Welcome to our Halloween special here on Nothing with Nick. I'm your host, Nick Edwards, and today on the show we have two guests with us. The first is Jacqueline Colville, a former pop can maker, but now dedicating her time to making Halloween fun and safe for both kids and adults all around the globe. Our second guest is Michaela Bain, the author of the 23rd best-selling book, It's My Candy, Give It Back, a guide to keeping your candy away from your kids, or your parents. First, I'd like to thank you guys both for being here, and I know it's a busy time for both of you, and we appreciate you coming in.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
And now Halloween is a time for kids to dress up as whatever they want to be. Their parents pass out candy by the truckloads in hopes of their house not being toilet papered next year. And with Halloween just around the corner, kids will be looking for the perfect costume. What do you think they should wear this year?
I think the girls should wear SpongeBob costumes and the boys should wear pink and purple frilly dresses.
Just mixing it up a little bit?
Just a little.
Cool.
I really think that kids should use homemade costumes this year just to show how creative they can be and show that they can use their imagination.
Right, very cool.
Costumes such as yours, the pirate costume, or maybe like a Minnie Mouse or something.
Very cool. And I know that one thing that an awesome costume can't do is protect you from the candy-stealing thugs. And it seems like the better your costume is, the more of a target you become. So what can you suggest kids do this year to protect themselves and their candy from the thugs?
I think they should buy a can of pepper spray, and then anyone that comes near them, they just spray them and then they start crying.
Very cool, very defensive method.
I've never had any techniques before growing up as a kid, but I would recommend to stop wearing deodorant a week or two before going out for Halloween, and to wear extra smelly socks, and possibly to not shower a week or two before, so they really get that stench, and no thugs will come near their candy.
Right, could be why I'm still single, so who knows. Now I know when I was a kid during Halloween, I used to get beat up a lot, and do you think that kids should just set aside their differences for Halloween and just enjoy the holiday?
Of course, Halloween is a time for children to come together, play those frilly little games, and eat as much candy as they possibly can.
Okay.
I totally agree. I think it's the time for kids to use their imaginations and be creative, just have fun.
Yeah, it's just a fun time for
pretend
everyone,
and
right?
eat lots of candy.
Right. So what about the kids that are too old to go trick-or-treating? What do you suggest they do this Halloween?
I think they should stay in, turn off all the lights except for one, and read my 23rd bestseller book, It's My Candy, Give It Back.
I know that's what I'll be doing personally, but what about you, Jackie?
I think that kids who are too old to go out for trick-or-treating should go and check out the bar life in London, because I know there's a lot going on at Halloween. And if they're not old enough to do that, I would just recommend that they stay home, rent some movies, and just hang out with their friends.
Very cool. Now I know for Halloween, it's a bit weird, but I like to hand out muffins because they're low in fat and they're easy to make and everyone enjoys a good muffin. But what's the weirdest thing you guys ever got for Halloween?
The strangest thing I've ever got was a container of smelly old rotten potato salad.
Okay, that's a bit weird, yeah. What about you, Jackie?
The strangest thing I've ever gotten in my bag was a boot in my sack. It was pretty interesting, yeah, but I was very happy to get the boot because it contributed to the smell and kept those thugs away.
Very cool. Now, I've noticed that my bones are starting to ache, which means it's going to be a cold this Halloween. What can you suggest kids do to keep warm?
I suggest they go to Tim Hortons, drink lots of hot chocolate and coffee, so that way they're all hyper for the night and they'll be nice and toasty.
Okay, so then they don't have to be driven around all the time, right? Very cool. That's a very good idea. And when we get back from the break, we're going to ask Jackie how she thinks kids should keep warm. Come back after this break.
Hey, Spider-Man, what time is it?
It's 5:45.
Are you sure?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure it's time to go to McCulloch's.
welcome back to our show. Before the break, I asked Michaela how she kept warm when she was a kid during Halloween. Now we're going to see what Jackie has to say. What do you think?
I would recommend using these little heat pads. I've heard of them. A lot of snowboarders use them, but they're very small. They come in packages of about 10.
Right.
They're pretty cheap, and kids can put them in their shoes, in their pants, in their shirts, just to keep warm without ruining their costumes.
Very good idea. That's very creative. Now, speaking of keeping warm, it seems like the two of you have been around the block a few times, getting goodies from strangers. I'm sure you've seen everything, sweet and scary, big and small. But what is the best costume you think you've ever seen?
The best costume I've ever seen was a man dressed as a teacup. He had the dish and then the cup, and it was full of water.
Okay, very cool.
That is pretty cool. The best Halloween costume I've ever seen would have to be a couple that dressed up as Barbie and Ken.
Oh, yeah.
And they actually had cardboard boxes with the real Barbie logo, so it was really cool, yeah.
Must have went all out. And then speaking of going all out, I know my neighbor likes to dress his house head to toe in Halloween decorations, his lawn, his house, everything, making my house look like crap. But what do you guys would say would be the scariest house you ever saw?
Scariest house I've ever seen would have to be the one year the house was all dark. There's a man in the front yard dressed as Freddy Krueger. Anyone that would come up to them, he would jump up and snatch them.
Yeah, that's pretty scary. What about you, Jackie?
That is pretty scary. The scariest house I've ever been to would have to be just a house down the street from me. They actually made a maze in their backyard.
Oh, really?
And all the walls were shaking, and there were people jumping out at whoever was going through the maze. So
That's really
it was
cool.
really scary.
That's awesome. Now, I know something that drives parents crazy every year is the constant ringing of the doorbell. And I know I would personally just like to rip the doorbell off my door, but it gets a bit costly every year. So what would you guys suggest parents can do to fix this little problem?
I suggest they turn off all the lights in their home, and then they cut the one wire for the doorbell, and then they can just fix it right after Halloween. Doesn't cost much at all.
Very good idea. What about you, Jackie?
I'd say to get a really mean and scary dog,
Okay.
and to set them on your front porch, and then no kid's going to want to ring your doorbell.
Exactly. I know I wouldn't want to go near it. Now, we all know the hardest thing about Halloween, hands down, is picking the perfect costume. And I see that you guys are dressed up today. But what were you planning to go out as?
Well, even though I'm dressed as a fairy right now, for Halloween, I think I'll go for a pop can.
A pop can? That sounds cool.
I think that's a great idea. That was my Halloween costume last year. This year I'm going for a little bit of old school. I'm going to be Minnie Mouse, as you can see, and just a homemade costume, as I was recommending earlier. Lots of layers, just things that I found around the house. So
Very cool. Very creative. Now, out of all the hundreds and hundreds of different kinds of candy, what was the one kind of candy you always wanted to get in your trick-or-treat bag?
I always wanted to get those Popeye sticks. They were so nice, especially with that potato salad.
You really mixed those two?
Made it nice and sugary and sweet.
Okay, that's interesting.
yeah,
what about
that
you?
sounds interesting. I like all candy. I really like chips and all different types of chocolate. But the one thing that I've always wanted to get in my bag would be a pickle on a stick.
A pickle on a stick.
They always give out candy apples and apples on sticks, but I've never seen a pickle on a stick.
Maybe you can make it popular.
Yeah, that
Bring it
would be
up.
good.
That'd be very cool. Now, that's all the time we have today. So I would like to thank you both for being here during this busy time. I know it was not easy getting you in here, but we're glad you came, and we want to thank you. Next time, tune in when we talk about quantum physics. See you next time.
This program brought to you in part by Fanshawe College, Wicked Wolf Productions, and David's Breath.
It's ghastly.
Mwah!